Is there a refereeing crisis in rugby at this moment? Referees are a backbone of the sport. Their split-second decisions make and shape the flow of the game outcomes. They can sometimes even decide the careers on rugby players, dependent on challenges, high tackles, deadly tackles, and this has sparked a lot of debate over the past couple of years and has really brought this into light. So there's been arguments, there's been debates that have been raised through pundits, fans alike. And I just want to open up the conversation because this is a conversation that I think needs to be had in the sport at this moment in time. Because obviously we rely heavily on the TMO. It's just I feel that at certain points the TMO is making decisions. If we look at, for instance, the England game versus South Africa in the Autumn Nations, there was a big controversial moment where the TMO actually called the referee back on an incident, and instead of coming to him and saying, "Look, there is an incident," or "I want you to take a look at this," he came and he basically put it in. He said, "There is this incident. This is what happened," and that he wanted the referee to take a look. Now, as a TMO, you're there to help the referee, if that makes sense. The referees make the decisions. If they are unclear, if they want to check on a decision, they will go to you and say, "Look, could you please check on this incident at this time between X number and so on, and this is what I think happened, can you please confirm and clarify?" But in this instance, the TMO brought it to the referee and the linesman were happy with it, and obviously the TMO saw something, brought it to his attention. But I feel it's very much a thing on wording, especially when you are a TMO, because the referee was called in, and from the way they worded it, the referee was coming in with the mindset of, okay, this has happened, this is the offense. So he's already partially coming into this decision with his mind made up. And this is just one example, and obviously I'm a Springbok fan, but I'm looking at it very objectively in terms of the incident, and this is something that we've been seeing a lot of, and decisions in the referees have been very up and down, and there's been a lack in consistency, which I think is needed. So I really want to dive into a lot of different things as to why I think there is a crisis in rugby at this moment. So I have made a couple notes, so do bear with me just for a second, because I want to try and capture as much as I possibly can of this. Because look, I want to open up this conversation. This is just my opinion. There's going to be a lot of people with different opinions on the matter. But like I say, I just want to open up this conversation. I want to hear what your thoughts are. And if you think that there's a problem, if you guys are happy with the refereeing in rugby at this moment in time, personally, I'm not. I think some changes need to be made. But it comes down to how far can you go to making changes, and keeping things still fluid, keeping things still fair. Because I think at this moment in time, with the refereeing, certain decisions are slowing the game down, where I think it's unnecessary. And obviously, we have a lot on concussion, we have a lot to protect the players, and at the end of the day, we want to be able to do that. And I think there's a couple different ways around it, but ultimately, it is a very aggressive sport. It is a very physical sport, and it needs to be taken so. So the last thing I want to see is for us to be going the route of football, if that makes sense. So, first of all, the inconsistency for the decisions of TMO. This is something that is pretty big. At the end of the day, there is human error that you have to take into consideration. There is a lot of different things. And I think generally the decision making in rugby is actually pretty good, because the decision making, a lot of the times you can hear what's happening, and albeit sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense. Like I think there was a couple of bits where I can't remember the name. I can't remember the game now. I think it was an Argentina game. The referee said that the tackle could have been lower. It's like, okay, he's generally happy with the tackle, but he could have gone lower. You could have always gone lower, but are you capable of doing it in that split second whilst in the action of trying to tackle somebody? And this is where it's like, okay, how low should he have gone, if that makes sense? And there's a couple different decisions that you find it a bit tricky, which have gone up against England, which have gone up against South Africa, which has gone up against Ireland, and it is a difficult one, because the referees try to be as fair as possible, and there's a very big thing on having respect for the referees. But I think the referees need more training, and some of the rules need a little bit of simplification. And again, that's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do, but again, I'm opening up a conversation. Maybe there is a way around this. I don't necessarily have anything off the top of my head, but surely there are different ways around making the refereeing in rugby more consistent, whether it's providing referees with high level training, more training, putting more money towards giving referees the best development, ongoing development as well. Maybe it's a thing of keeping regular tests at certain intervals to make sure that all the referees are constantly up to date with all the rules, have a better understanding of the rules in what different scenarios they could possibly be. Again, just opening up a conversation. So we're looking at inconsistency in decision making, things like high tackles, scrum penalties. These are always big moments in games, and again, it comes down to the margins. We go down to things like the over reliance on TMOs. Honestly, I do feel that referees need to get some of their power back, and I think they do go to the TMO too often. It's sometimes having the referee second guess himself, triple guess himself, which I don't think that should be. The TMO should be there to help the referee when he needs it. They should not be forcing themselves upon the game. If the referee is uncertain or has any questions or wants to look back at something, fair enough. He goes and he says, look, can you please look at this, this, and this, and this? In which case, they then go and look at that, But I feel because they want to try and catch as much as possible, everything is going to the TMO. And that is then in turn slowing down the game, because now we are having to wait however long for this to now happen. So it's ended up becoming more of a spectacle on who did what than actually playing with the game. Obviously I do understand when it comes to dangerous tackles and things like that, fair enough, games need to be stopped. But sometimes the decisions are just ridiculous. And, it's like, why are you stopping this game? Just continue. But again, it is a difficult sport because there's so much going on, especially with rucks and mauls. Everybody's on top of each other, and the flow of the game sometimes can be, you can kind of get caught up in it. But the decision making, I find, is becoming a lot more inconsistent, and I do feel that refs need to have that more confidence in them, and they need to be given more confidence to say, look, you know what you're doing. You know, especially at the highest levels, you know what you're doing. You're playing at that. You are refereeing at the highest levels, and you have your sidemen, your linesmen, who are also highly, highly qualified. The TMO is not as qualified as the men on the field, and they should not have power over the men on the field, if that makes sense. Um, and then we look at um, the actual physical impact on the game. So the issues, I feel that they slow down the game. B, obviously refereeing is always worked on a very, very fine margins. You know, one mistake, one decision, and you having your ass chewed out by every single fan, especially fans that it goes against, you know, and it's difficult being a referee, because you want to try and be as fair as possible. You don't try and catch everything that you possibly can, while still keeping the game flowing. But again, I feel that the referees are losing their power in whether the referees really are losing their power on decisions that are being made, and they want to try and appease too many people. You know, the referee's job is there to referee the game, and that is it. But it does leave questions open as to, is the game being played on a level playing field? You know, is there bias? Is this going more towards X or Z? You know, there is there is a lot, especially in football right now. There's this referee that's getting under shit because he's talking about giving player yellow cards and, you know, doing a whole bunch of shit before the game and so on. At the end of the day, referees are human, and, you know, the respect in rugby for the referees have always been extremely high, and I just feel the refereeing decisions, they come under too much scrutiny at times, which I feel that they shouldn't, to a certain degree, but I think they're also causing them their own troubles by trying to overanalyze literally everything, you know. So we have to take a look into referees. Higher standards need to be put for the referees to be able to play the games fairly. Obviously, I never want to see an instance like what we have in football, where, you know, referees and so on are corrupt. I'm not saying that it's not happening in rugby. I'm sure it is, because there are certain games and decisions that it does kind of look that way. But we have to hold the referees to a higher standard, and you know, make sure that they are given the respect that they are demanded. B, giving them the best training they possibly can get, and giving them as consistent training as they can get to provide the best refereeing within the games, especially at the highest levels. And then we look at what needs to be changed. So, A, I think certain laws should be simplified. Governing bodies need to look into the laws to make it more, I wouldn't say easier, but easier to enforce to a certain degree, right? Because there are so many nuances to rugby. You know, like I say, split second decisions. There's too many gray areas in the game, which you think, oh, is that right? Isn't that high? What is that? What exactly defines a yellow card? What defines a red card offense? Especially with this new red card offense, which I think is ridiculous. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that I think could be looked into, but whether it's for the better of the sport, that's a different thing. Again, I'm just opening up a conversation here. Is it viable to do? To look into the sport, to look into whether it is possible, right? To make the game flow better. Invest in refereeing development. This is a very, very big thing. So they need better training. They need more support to be able to understand the game better, understand all the gray areas as well. But consistent refereeing, bringing high levels of referees into the game, better training, better support, put money into referees, because there's lots of money being spent on players, but the people who are ensuring that the game is played at its highest level are the referees, and they're getting forgotten about, which I don't feel is fair, because they are such a big part of the game where they deserve the best that they could possibly get, and more needs to be put into them. But it does come down to the thing of, is rugby to a certain point a dying sport because profitability in rugby isn't exactly the best, which is why there's all this potential talk about different leagues, or different things with higher money being put into the sport. In the Gallagher Premiership, I think a couple clubs foreclosed because they liquidated because they didn't have enough money. So it's all about making it viable, making the sport as best as it can be to watch, as entertaining it is, but also to provide the referees with the best that they can possibly get. Communication. I feel that post-match briefs should be a consistent thing within games for referees to be able to give answers as to their decisions, right? Because a lot of things you go wondering, oh, but why did he do this? Why did he do that? Key highlights, key moments. Why did you make these decisions? Controversial moments. What led you? Obviously, they do speak on field, so you can kind of get an understanding, but why are they, what is their thought behind, what's their rationale behind this, right? And then using technology wisely. I don't think the TMO should be something that is consistently used for every single decision. The referee should have more power in making their decisions. They should have more confidence in making their decisions. They are the most qualified people on the pitch to make decisions. The TMO should be there to help, not to dictate. It should be there to answer questions and to review incidents, not to give the referee orders, or to show him what he might have possibly missed. There is human error, but the TMO is there to assist, it's there to help. It's not there to dictate play, right? So I don't think the TMO should be used as much as it has been used recently. So finally, there is a lot of back and forth about this, and this is becoming a relatively big issue in the game, and there's been a lot of fans that have been very upset with the decision making in rugby recently, which is why I want to open up this conversation. Maybe there's a couple of things that you think that I'm talking which is absolute rubbish, or I'm just wobbling on, but maybe there are points within this video that you feel, what, he is right, he is wrong, we could look into this and this, because I feel something needs to be changed. We need to respect the referees. They need to be given power to make their decisions, but referees also need to respect the game. They need to allow the game to flow. They need to be allow the game to be played without being stopped with every single with every single incident that is happening, oh this, oh that, let's stop here, because it just destroys the flow of the game. And rugby is supposed to be an open, free flowing game. Otherwise, we are going to run into this issue like we have with footballers, where every single 2 minutes they're rolling on the floor because they get tapped in the ear, and they want a yellow card, they want a red card, and where does it end? So I don't feel the TMO should be used as much as possible. Referees need to understand the impact that constantly going to the TMO has on the game of rugby. So with that in mind, look, I want to keep this conversation going. Please drop your likes please like and subscribe first of all, but drop your comments in the section below, because I want to know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts on the refereeing decisions? What are your thoughts on rugby in general? And do you think a change needs to be made? Because I think if we keep going the way we're going, we're going to end up like football, where people are rolling and crying over getting tapped in, because they want to look for getting a tactical advantage, getting players sent off, and that's not rugby. It's that has no place in rugby. But the more we continue on this path, the more we're gonna find we're moving more towards that. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe if you guys do want to see more rugby content. And on that note, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.